In the bottom left corner, this is actually not really even the bottom left, Andre. This is the mid-hand left position. In the mid-hand left position, we have from Team Complexity, the Purple Terran. His name is Kevin Riley, also goes by 3 letters, QXC. Now, QXC is one of the best North American Terrans, but people always forget about him because he can't really string together results that consistently, and I think that's been one of his biggest issues, consistency, which is really tough because everyone nowadays realize the difficulty it is Terran now that they've been nerfed dozens of times.
Oh yes.
And now I feel like QXC, he's still a very creative Terran, don't get me wrong. He's still thinking of really cool ways to play, and I always look forward to seeing what QXC can show us based on what he's practicing.
My favorite is QXC's use of the Reapers at Super Endgame. He trades out SCVs for Reapers, so like 20 for 20.
Yeah, and then just destroy buildings.
And destroy buildings.
It's really cool.
Like crazy. And you can still keep up with the regular army. That is such an innovative way to play. Really, really like that. But over here in the mid-top, we have Fnatic NightEnD, who's starting out in the blue Protoss. This is considered probably the pillow fight of the league right now, since both of them are on the very bottom. Not much consequence to the overall division, but I'm sure they don't treat it like a pillow fight. If they do, that pillow is filled of probably explosives. On the other hand, has a lighter. Exactly. When they're ready to throw it at the other person, and then throw the lighter.
I feel like a pillow of banelings is like the worst pillow to sleep on for multiple reasons. Not because of the explosion, but because of the goo afterwards. It's like a whoopee cushion, you know? Like, one of the worst things about a whoopee cushion isn't the embarrassment that you think you just farted. It's the smell of the leather after that's been like, someone's breath has been like.
It's not just the breath; it's the spit that's
inside
the spit,
of there
the
saliva with the breath, with like someone who just ate a bunch of onions on their burger, and like the fact that like it's effervescing, the bubbles of gases are effervescing into the air. It's disgusting. That's the worst part of the Baneling pillow. Although I don't even know why we're talking about this.
It's all right.
And I still do want to point out that NightEnD is a pretty solid player. It's just that he most notably struggles against Zerg. His Protoss versus Terran, much different story. And we've been seeing lots of scenarios where NightEnD even gets close to beating Zerg. Remember his games against Stefano? He went 1-2, and he almost won 2-0. Imagine if he was able to take that game on Daybreak. Different story. Now, guys, this is the battle between seed number 8 and 9 in the division. There are only 9 players. Hence, this is the fight between the 2 bottom dwellers. That said, NightEnd's season still can be alive because TT1 and Demaga are also on the verge of elimination. So if NightEnd can pair together a couple of wins, he could very well still be alive in NASL Season 5. But it's kind of tough because QXC isn't exactly a rollover opponent. QXC still has been able to take off a couple games in the season.
Some really intelligent moves in the beginning phase. You can see that Probe was trying to get in there. Now, it only saw 3 Marines. Normally, when you only see 3 Marines, you're like, well, that's weird. You should have a couple more Marines than that, about 1 or 2. So I think he's a bit apprehensive in this position. NightEnD trying to actually get in here and see if his opponent has gone for an expansion or not. We know that QXC has gone for it, but he didn't put it on the low ground. NightEnD could still think it's some sort of one-base play, so he does have to be a little bit careful, but he's not being careful at all. This is actually very risky of NightEnD.
Well, NightEnD also gets scouted too, and SCV gets by. That's a little bit sloppy considering the SCV does get full information and sees the quick robo after the gateway. Now, some people normally follow some more gateways into the robotics facility. But this quick robo could lead to a very quick tech choice from NightEnD if you choose to go for a robotic base shortly after.
That's really a shame. You know, QXC was trying to do so many mind games in that beginning stage. Trying to fake out that he is going, in fact, for some one-base play. NightEnD not really falling for it at all. And what QXC did was he took the economic loss by not making this orbital command center on the low ground so he can start mining from it immediately. Rather, he has to lift off, waste a little bit of SCV mining and SCV making. And NightEnD is just going to go for 2 assimilators and a robo, probably the exact counter to this build. It's really, really unfortunate, but here we go. A little bit of pressure in this beginning stage, but you can see the power of Guardian Shield in the beginning. It's just so substantial, Frodin, taking off 2 damage off of every single Marine. That's 33%
And QXC getting a little bit sloppy with how he's chasing units, although NightEnD, wow, just has to show a little bit of restraint. And that's all it takes to thwart off early Marine pressure. This is a Marine poke that lots of Koreans love doing nowadays, but QXC not really gathering his Marine forces together. Instead, lets it get picked off slowly, and that's where Stalkers excel.
Another Korean thing that a lot of Protosses have been doing is actually making 2 Stalkers before any sentries. And that way, any of that pressure could have been abated just by microing back from his natural. Unfortunately, NightEnD just receiving it a little bit, but he received it so well to the point where he's fine, right? Like he didn't really have to do too much there. He didn't have that much crisis management. But when it comes down to it, he could have actually died to something like a 4-5 barracks, just straight up Marines, and he would have no time to actually react because no units were all the way down there, or not enough units were all the way down there.
And also going Twilight Forge, using his gas in that regard. He is going for armor and blink. That's usually synonymous. If you go weapons, usually go charge. That's just kind of the synchronization it goes for, if that you choose to go for that tech path. And that way, it's just a more defensive option. Charges, you obviously want to set up a strong timing. You're able to pretty much take on the bio head on, and then from there you can tech to tech to Templars if you really choose to. Blink is, of course, to cover your paths, which, of course, it is Metropolis. The paths are really wide in terms of how much area you have to cover from your natural to your main. Just look at it. It just feels so long from one corner to another. Blink is very useful, especially against quick drop. But I love this from QXC as well. A fast third command center from his compared to his opponent, and he's going to be able to play pretty strong macro because there's no real reason for him to be too aggressive. This is just pretty standard medevac poke. But once he sees Blink, he actually shouldn't be able to do too much damage here.
What's key for NightEnD is not to show Blink until he actually commits to a drop. If he commits to a drop or some sort of silly attack, when you're attacking into 6 gateways, it doesn't make sense to actually put or apply pressure. So I would actually say NightEnD could really take advantage of the situation here. But nice pick off with that observer, or excuse me, with that scan.
Big stim. He really wants, even the Marauder wanted to get the observer. The Marines are looking at the Marauder. Oh, okay, hold that thought. The nice blink here to try to take out the medevac to reduce the ability of the healing. Another stim from QXC, and his units are going to be very weak. NightEnd's Guardian Shields are on point. Very well done. And QXC's aggression has been thwarted.
Yeah, you can see the power of Blink Stalkers with that Guardian Shield, with that +1 armor. That's a total of 3 armor. Outside of that, that's actually a total of 4 armor, excuse me, because they have an internal 1 armor, like a base 1 armor, excuse me. So 4 armor against how much attack are Marines doing? 7, because they have that +1. That's 3 attack every single time, more than 50% damage reduced in that upgrade pathing. Really, really nicely done by Fnatic NightEnD to really defend against that pretty strongly.
Yeah, I feel like QXC is not in the worst position possible, though, because he does have that fast third command center, and he's been very on top of his SCVs. I mean, NightEnd's also been probing up like crazy. Both players opting for strong macroeconomic play. Of course, it is Metropolis. Both players, everyone actually tends to like to play macro on this map. Not just both races, but
still, I'm going to give NightEnD a pretty strong advantage going into this. QXC should be about 30 more supply with the Marines in the beginning and then that poke afterwards. He lost a lot of supply and all of that.
Are you comparing him to Flash? Because by now, Flash would be maxed, man.
Yeah, man. 12.5 minutes. It's like, oh, not max?
I don't even understand. It's so funny, too, because in this position, we've been seeing Flash be super aggressive off 3 base. Even when he's just starting to transition into everything else, he's still moving out and poking out. You can just see the difference in terms of level of macro, especially considering how many units get picked off. We might see more units get picked off. A force field trapping a lot of units. NightEnD doing a very good job just picking off what he can without committing too much. And the resources lost tab usually does favor NightEnD considerably, although a very bold blink with Stalkers without Zealots tanking. That evened it out a little bit.
So what NightEnD is doing is something really nice. He's taking map control, which is so important, really forcing his opponent back as much as possible. Behind this, he's actually taking up the High Templars. So when you're actually defending with High Templars, it's a lot better to have as much space as possible because then you can receive the army much better. You have more time to actually feed back. Your units don't have to clump up so much because you have all this space. You can go layers of High Templars where you feed back, where you storm. It's so very nice. So he's just readjusting his base so that he's absolutely strong in all areas. You can see cannons are even going down. That is super, super safe and comprehensive. But from here, QXC really doesn't have any chance to be pressuring. He should actually assume this is coming, as this is such a natural inclination to go to High Templars directly after a lot of gateway upgrades.
And that's just going to prompt QXC to get his Ghost upgrades as fast as possible. Try to see if he can beat his opponent to the punch. He scans, sees Templars all nicely organized with the Sentries and the Zealots. So that's going to make QXC say, I'm going to have to be a little bit careful from now on. I can't overstep my bounds. If I get force fielded and storm, that'd be it.
QXC! QXC! You could be in so much
big
trouble!
Balls, Andre. He's flying over a path where he can't drop
gosh.
all of his units. In fact, he sent some of his units to snipe the High Templars, which is a great thought, but wow, was that risky. That could have ended so poorly. He does end up losing about 15 to 16 supply worth of units. QXC can't keep trading like that.
No, he can't. He's already so far behind at this point. NightEnD has a very large bank, but he doesn't have any reinforcements from here. You can see Zealots going into the third base from here. One thing that QXC has done a phenomenal job in is his worker count. I mean, I always see SCVs popping out of here. 67 workers so far. I guess not. NightEnD is so substantially more.
NightEnd's been chrono boosting out everything as fast as he can. We do see another poke here from NightEnD, although QXC got this position on the LD, Andre.
Whoa!
6 force field.
Very nice.
That was actually really good. Those sentries are very spent. They actually have 0 energy.
Very nicely done, though. I have to say, that's one of the best ways I've actually seen some sort of retreat by Protoss. Normally, Protoss are dead on the retreat just because of concussive shell. But as it stands, QXC has gone ahead and climbed back into things with his composition. You know, I don't know what it is. NightEnD just has significantly less units, but he is pumping out a double Robo as we speak. This is the perfect transition. Out of High Templars, you go a double Robo Colossus, and you're able to surprise your opponent when they don't have a lot of Vikings. And Ghosts, they're still good, don't get me wrong, but you need something to isolate those Colossus, else they're just going to rain heavy damage on you. They can actually go just pure Zealots and not have to worry, because Zealots are the best tanking units, but there are no Vikings on the field to really deal with those Colossus.
Ooh, big stem from QXC.
Oh, wow.
That could have been a huge pickoff if he sniped those Colossus. Part of the reason why NightEnd's army is a lot smaller is because he spent so much on tech. He spent easily 600, 700, 800 gas on it over his opponent. He does have +3 armor, and he's starting to work on shields as well on top of everything. So NightEnd is basically making his army extremely strong in the next couple of minutes, considering that he has pretty much everything he wants. He's got double AoE. He's got 4 bases. He can easily take a 5th base, and there's no way for QXC to break him anytime soon.
Yeah, very crazy stuff we're seeing right now from both these players. QXC now struggling to get Vikings out as fast as possible. You can see 3 in production at a time, 4 in production at a time, or they should be in production at a time. There we go. And QXC just needs to back up from here and try to receive this as best as possible. Now, both these players are max, but QXC needs to be so careful.
He needs to at least EMP.
EMP!
He can use a good concave. Maybe something can happen, but he's clumping himself up into a small little area, and Protoss has the better concave, although now NightEnd is disengaging because he's afraid of 1 Viking. Oh, my goodness.
The clump up,
Tom Cruise Viking.
The clump up isn't as bad, actually, for the Colossus. Colossus shoot like this, perpendicular. So if you're clumping up, you're actually going more like a roundish, again, perpendicular to the actual laser beam. So you do reduce a little bit of damage, but those storms have to be so careful about. But as it stands, QXC doing a good job of just staying in this. He now has a comparable Viking count that can actually deal with this. +2 ship weapons is on the way, so that'll help out quite a bit to really take out the Colossus ASAP. But this is the perfect amount. 4 Colossus. And he's even making additional Colossus so that he can rinse and repeat. Always have that recycling. Maybe he groups it up with the rest of his Colossus, but I'd actually be really surprised. I would actually think he just goes for a big attack and then goes in again. Just have those waves of units. That way the Vikings get cleared out a little bit, the Ghosts get cleared out, and the Terran has to remax in pretty rubbish units.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, and now QXC... he has to still be cautious, too, because if he overmakes Vikings, then it's a simple transition out of it. There's a lot of sitting supply that's not going to be useful to QXC. Is it getting near that time too, where QXC just starts trading as SCVs, Andre, or does he need to build a bigger a bigger resource pool before he can do that?
He definitely needs a bigger command center count. I would say the minimum is going to be around 8. So 8 command centers, then you can really stop, because I'm not going to do the math. But just trust me, it's just enough mules. 8 mules, times it by roughly 200.
Well, 1 per patch is usually a nice little measurement, because you can't double mule.
But the way I see it, it's like roughly 200. It's a little less than that, 180 minerals per minute. You know, you kind of double it. It's a little less than 1,600 minerals, and that's plenty at that end game stage when you're really just focusing on having a good engagement. You're going to have a lot of passivity because you're just both sharking around trying to find the best engagement. So that's probably going to be the best in my opinion. But as it stands, he's going to show all of those Colossus. Now, oh, careful, both of you.
Wow. Stalker's taking a lot of damage from their own storms as if they got mini EMP'd.
Yeah.
Now, Ghosts have to be very cautious, Andre.
NightEnD has too many Stalkers in this composition, I think, Frodan.
Not enough Zealots.
Not enough Zealots, not enough Archons. You need those Archons to really splash on top of the Vikings. Ooh, nice storm from the top.
Nice storm.
And QXC needs to back up, but NightEnD wants to engage immediately.
Both players trying to show restraint, although NightEnD really should be pushing the issue. That's already playing passive. The Vikings getting some good volleys, but the Guardian Shield blocking lots of damage from the Vikings as they only have +2 weapons. And the Terran army looks like they're going to be able to hold out for as long as they can, but the Stalker count is still pretty good. Just like you said, Andre, the Stalkers remaining is very high up, but it doesn't really have a lot of chase potential other than Blink.
Yeah.
Usually the Archons prevent you from getting kited.
Even QXC kind of missed micro that. He could have done it a little bit better. Still, cleaning up all those Colossus is such a big advantage. But what he could have done is just backed up a little bit, let the Vikings actually do their damage. Don't let the Colossus deal damage against the Marine Marauders. And then from there, you can actually take out all the Stalkers. Stalkers, terrible at killing just barracks units. But you can see NightEnD a little bit on the back foot. He's trying to apply pressure, but it's so hard to apply pressure when you have so much supply caught up in Stalkers. Stalkers are just not good at endgame.
I feel like what's going to really help NightEnD, though, is just his raw banks of warp-in units. I mean, sure, Stalkers may not fight cost efficiently, but if you just have so many and you're blinking and have a raw amount of DPS with great upgrades, 3-2 and +3 shields is on the way. Yeah, I don't know, man. The Stalkers still could do surprising damage, and they are very mobile in terms of being able to get into a position. It's just how they're going to fare off against massive amount of Marauders. QXC going to go for a huge fight again. Vikings are not in position to do anything. There's too much supply really sitting there. You better land them, but then run the risk of dying and not being prepared for Colossus.
And you know what? The reinforcements are going to be enough for it, and you can see how brittle this army is, not only dying to Marauders, but dying to Marines as well. But be careful, because Colossus are there now. Both these players just trading out over and over and over again, but this might be a little bit too much. You can see QXC is just losing too much to those Colossus, not dealing with them in time. GG gets called out. NightEnD will take game number 1. Very exciting on Metropolis.
Yeah, NightEnD just had stronger bank, really, and I feel like his upgrades were superb. Dodged EMPs, dealt with Ghosts very nicely, and Blink Stalkers is always something that NightEnd's been very fond of. You know, he's always likes going Blink Stalker compositions, especially in Protoss versus Terran. As I remember last season, he was doing very much the same thing. I think you're right, Andre. I just feel like if you have such a big advantage, and the way NightEnD likes to play, he likes to blink his Stalkers back a lot and then poke, make them stim, maybe disengage, and then by the time he engages, maybe it's a couple storms. When your units are that weak to a storm, I think Stalkers are pretty effective because they can get these guaranteed shots off.
QXC did play it a little sloppy. That's the one thing. In the last battle, I feel like engaging unnecessarily was the worst decision. Wow, that's a very obvious statement. But still, if he just backed off, waited for those Ghosts to pop up, simple EMPs, taking out all the High Templars, he would have had a big game 1 right there. Just fending off that attack would have been so much easier, but he lost a good 30 supply before he actually backed up.
Yeah.
And that's a big problem.
That's a big nail biter.
It's such a fine line with those Stalkers, because I understand Stalkers are really, really mobile, and they make it really hard. As you said, blinking back, forcing that stim. You have a lot of mind games, but when it comes down to it, in straight-up engagements, Stalkers just don't do enough damage, and they die so easily once Zealots get cleaned up.
Yep. The game number 1 was brought to you by LAByte.com. Type in promo code NASL when you're at the checkout menu to let us know that you support us. In fact, we have a commercial to explain everything All 4 of us are here. The casters will tell you everything. Don't go anywhere.